a small plane, 2 men, and a mission so dangerous that even today it sounds almost impossible. This isn't fiction, it's a true story of courage, innovation, and sheer human endurance. It all began with the strange dream of a Las Vegas hotel owner. He wanted a small airplane to stay in the air, not for hours, not for days, but for months without landing. This wasn't just about fuel. This was about sleepless nights, brutal December cold, and maintaining a delicate balance between life and death. But the real question was, could these 2 pilots actually pull it off? Or would they vanish forever into the blue skies above Nevada? The story begins in 1956, when a man named Warren Bailey opened a hotel in Las Vegas called the Hacienda. It wasn't like the glamorous, high-end casinos of the city. This place was simpler and cheaper, aimed at regular folks. But because it wasn't making much profit, Bailey was constantly looking for creative ways to promote it. One day, an old friend and former World War II pilot named Bob Tim gave him an idea. What if someone broke a world record in the name of the Hacienda Hotel? Specifically, a world endurance flight record. A plane flying for weeks or even months without ever touching the ground. Warren Bailey loved the idea. It was risky, but if it worked, it would make headlines and put his hotel on the map. Bob Tim agreed to do it himself. After all, he was an experienced pilot. He purchased a small Cessna 172 aircraft and hired a mechanic to help modify it for an endurance flight. First, they removed the co-pilot seat to make room for resting. Since they needed 2 pilots for shifts, Bob recruited another pilot to share the controls. They built a tiny 8-square-foot storage area for essentials, added a small sink for sponge baths, and installed a large 95-gallon belly fuel tank. To refuel in midair, they used an electric winch that would pull a hose up from a moving fuel truck below. They even created a small foldable platform outside the door, just big enough for a person to stand on during refueling. It was incredibly dangerous. Standing on the edge of a plane midair was something you'd only see in movies today, but back then, it was just another challenge to overcome. Bob and his co-pilot did several test flights during the summer of 1958. But things didn't go well. The first co-pilot didn't get along with Bob, and after multiple failed attempts and technical issues with the engine, the mission seemed doomed. Meanwhile, another team in Dallas had already broken the endurance record by flying for 50 days straight. But Bob wasn't ready to give up. By December, most of the technical problems were fixed. He brought in a new co-pilot, John Cook. Together, on December 4, 1958, they took off from McCarran Field, officially starting their record attempt. Officials from the International Aviation Authority marked their wheels with special white paint to ensure they never secretly landed. Any ground contact would leave a mark and invalidate the attempt. 12 hours after takeoff, they attempted their first refueling. As the plane flew just 20 feet above a speeding truck, Cook dropped the winch. The workers below connected the hose, and the fuel began to pump into the belly tank. The slightest mistake, a misalignment or speed mismatch, could have led to disaster. But they succeeded. They had to repeat this process nearly 100 times. For the first few days, they circled Las Vegas to stay close in case of emergencies. But as time went on, they ventured further, flying over remote areas of California. Higher altitudes meant better fuel efficiency, but also freezing temperatures. Due to the modifications, the plane's insulation was poor. So they stayed closer to the ground, risking mountain crashes but avoiding frostbite. Life in the tiny plane was claustrophobic. They slept in turns, ate food sent up from the hotel kitchen, and even had a foldable toilet seat with waste bags they'd drop over the desert. Cook's wife later confirmed this detail years after his death. They passed Christmas and New Year's Eve in the sky. But fatigue was setting in. One night, Bob fell asleep at the controls, just minutes before his co-pilot's shift. Miraculously, the plane flew on autopilot for over an hour, straight into a canyon. If he hadn't woken up when he did, the plane would have crashed into the rocks. By day 39, disaster struck. The plane's generator failed. Without it, the electric systems, including the fuel pump, stopped working. A small wind turbine was sent up to restore limited power, just enough to keep the radio alive. But everything else had to be managed manually. Still, they continued, because once you're that far in, you don't quit. They had a mission to finish, to fly longer than anyone had before, to make history.